All right, so it's not a done deal, but it's a done deal. The 49ers and Brock Purdy, big news, arriving at a contract extension, 5 years, $265 million. That's 5 years through the 2030 season. Brock Purdy had 1 year left on his contract. And so now everybody putting actions behind their words. Brock Purdy saying that he wanted to get this thing done in a very timely fashion. The 49ers, both John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, and Jed York, declaring that Brock Purdy was the only quarterback for them. Somebody that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan said, as long as we're with the 49ers, we want Brock Purdy to be the quarterback. And so the sides get it done. And it was, I would say, about as drama free as you could expect. Now, did this side see eye to eye from the beginning? Absolutely not. We knew that Brock Purdy's side was going to come in asking for about 60 million. 49ers first offer, according to my sources, was 49 million per year. It ends up being 53 million per year. And that's right about, I think, where the 49ers were expecting to pay because there is a song and dance. One side shoots high, the other side shoots low, and then eventually it kind of works out so it's somewhere in the middle. You knew that there would be a 50 in front of the extension. I thought, it would be right around 55 million. That was kind of the going rate, it seemed like. But I think in a lot of ways, what George Kittle did a couple weeks ago and just Brock Purdy's overall temperament kind of set the stage for this deal getting done at the end of phase 2 of the offseason program, a full week before OTAs start, and now it's offense versus defense and everything else. So here I am in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, of all places, but I knew I had to bring my laptop with me because although I didn't necessarily, I'm not going to give myself this much credit to say that I expected it to get done at this time when I was away for my daughter's graduation. I fully thought that there was a possibility that it could get done at really any time. And I'll go back to the George Kittle situation. So when Trey McBride signed his contract extension tight end for the Arizona Cardinals at 19 million a year, my first thought was, wow, what is George Kittle going to ask for? Well, guess what he asked for? 19.1 million. And it was only with the final year up around 22.5 million that raised Kittle up to that point. So now George Kittle had already signed, his big money deal, the second contract, but I really think what that contract did was it was a departure from what the stars of last year did with the 49ers. Christian McCaffrey, his contract negotiations was mostly behind the scenes. Yes, he did skip some of the offseason program, and then he got his deal done fairly early on. So he was able to report to training camp on time. Obviously, didn't do much in training camp because he was injured and then missed a lot of the season. But with Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk, those guys really went public with their discontent over their contract situations. Trent Williams was a holdout. Brandon Ayuk was a hold in. 49ers were shopping Brandon Ayuk. They had some deals in place to trade Brandon Ayuk. And finally, right before the start of the regular season, Trent Williams signed his deal. Brandon Ayuk signed his deal. But guess what? That drama, those dramas had an impact on the team. And you can't tell me that it didn't. You could sense it during training camp. I mean, it was a show out there with Brandon Ayuk being the hold in, being at practice every day, but not practicing. It was a level of frustration for the 49ers that it was pretty clear early on in this offseason that they were looking to avoid, and the big time players who were looking for contracts were, really met the 49ers more than halfway in avoiding that kind of drama. So George Kittle signs his deal. And on Friday, Brock Purdy agrees to a contract. And it's been reported $181 million in total guarantees. I'm hearing that the fully guaranteed money is around $100 million, I should say, $100 million fully guaranteed. And so that contract makes Brock Purdy far and away the highest paid player in franchise history. And it really is a situation where Brock Purdy and the 49ers worked together on this to avoid what could have been potentially an acrimonious situation. So, when you think about where this offseason started for the 49ers, think about how they ended the 2024 season. I mean, this was a bad team at the end of the season. They only, one win in their final 7 or 8 games, that coming against the Chicago Bears. The wheels came off. At one point, it looked like the defense was rounding into shape and they were playing well. And then it just became an absolute disaster. Nick Sorensen was fired as defensive coordinator. Um, Brian Schneider was fired as special teams coordinator. 49ers hired Robert Saleh to come back. So that was, some good news for the organization. But then the offseason, the new league year started, and what happened? I mean, a dozen or more starters and significant contributors were not coming back. Trades, including Deebo Samuel to the Washington Commanders, the 49ers making some salary cap moves to release Javon Hargrave, Leonard Floyd, Malik Collins, free agent departures, 49ers not willing to pay the money that it would have taken to re-sign Aaron Banks, Charvarius Ward, Talanoa Hufanga, others. And then the one guy they really wanted to keep was Dre Greenlaw, but they came in too late for him after the Denver Broncos had already reached a verbal agreement with him before the start of the new league year when contracts could be signed, but the 49ers weren't able to keep him, so he leaves. So there was a lot of negativity, a lot of negative news with the 49ers. Then I think probably the first positive things that happened was the draft. 49ers put a lot of eggs in that basket of replenishing through the draft. So they kept their 11 draft picks, made no trades. They reinforced their defensive line with the additions, with the drafting of Michael Williams, of Alfred Collins, of CJ West. They added some other guys who could be very significant players on the defense with the linebacker Nick Martin, nickelback Upton Stout, and then they mix in some other players along the way. So that was the first probably uh, breath of fresh air that the 49ers experienced this offseason. And then it was the signing of Kittle to his big contract. And now another really positive development for the state of the 49ers, Brock Purdy signing his deal or agreeing to his deal with the 49ers. If I didn't already say it, I'll repeat it. This contract should be official at some point next week after everything is kind of sorted out and all the fine tuning takes place on that contract. But it is agreed upon 5-year extension, $265 million. And by the way, it also should be mentioned that the release of the schedule could be seen as a positive for the 49ers when it really comes into full force of the level of their schedule and how undaunting it is when you consider that the 49ers have just about any metric you want to use the weakest schedule on paper that of any team in the league, and that takes into consideration whether you're using last year's records as the base point for what the schedule is as far as strength, relative strength of schedule, or if you're looking at the Vegas odds for what's projected for teams this season. Any way you slice it, 49ers have the weakest schedule in the NFL. So there is an opportunity for this team to improve dramatically on their 6-11 record of last season. And then this added bonus of Brock Purdy agreeing to sign a contract with the 49ers. So Brock Purdy is somebody that I think he's one of these guys that I never really understood when people on the outside was like, oh, Brock Purdy, whatever. The people who criticize Brock Purdy, I just don't see it. And maybe I think the closer you are to Brock Purdy, uh, seeing him every day, seeing how he is in the locker room, talking to his teammates, talking to his coaches. Honestly, I haven't heard a negative word about Brock Purdy since he's been with the 49ers. And if you talk to his teammates, you know the level of respect that they have for him. And so for the 49ers to then come through and give him this kind of contract, I think speaks volumes. And this will be a very popular move within the locker room. Brock Purdy, of course, first full year as a 49ers starter, set all kinds of franchise records with a 113 passer rating, yards for a season. He was fourth in the voting for MVP of the NFL. Last year, his numbers did fall off, but still, when you look at it, top seven QBR in the NFL as he added running to his repertoire of talents as far as leading the 49ers offense. And then the other part of it is, what the 49ers think of him. Jed York, who, it's his money, I guess, as the CEO of the 49ers. He declared during the NFL annual meeting back in March that in his estimation, Brock Purdy is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And so Brock Purdy is being paid like a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Was it going to be 60? Was it going to be 50? Was it going to be somewhere in between? It ends up being somewhere in between. Kind of looked at that $55 million per year mark as kind of, the give or take. Was it going to be a little bit more than that? Was it going to be a little bit less than that? So we'll see when the full structure of the contract comes out, but certainly a very positive development for the 49ers and for Brock Purdy. And one thing that should be noted with Brock Purdy is that by being locked in as a 49ers quarterback of now and for the future, it also locks him in to some big time endorsements. I mean, there is a lot of cachet in being the franchise quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. And with this contract, it also opens the door for significant off the field endorsement opportunities. So, although I'm going to say this with tongue planted firmly in cheek, although it's only for 265 million, I can guarantee you that he will make a lot more in off the field opportunities because he is now undoubtedly the 49ers franchise quarterback, the face of the franchise, and everything else. So that's the big news on a Friday afternoon. The 49ers and Brock Purdy coming to terms on a 5-year extension that will pay him a heck of a lot of money. Let's get those terms again. It is a 5-year extension, $265 million through the 2030 season. Should be official next week. Thanks for watching this video, and that is it for now.